Welcome to Civic Affairs. I'm Andy Martins. I'm glad you're with us. And this week we have Sara McCleary. She's a household name in Sault Ste. Marie, and I have to bring my A game because this lady knows a lot about politics. How you doing, Sara?
Good. Thank you for having me here.
No problem. I'm glad to have you. We just thought we'd start with your background and how you got into journalism and politics and all of that.
Sure. So journalism actually kind of fell into my lap. A friend of mine had got a job at Sioux this week, and she wrote for a couple of weeks as a freelancer and then found that it wasn't for her, and just told the editor, you know, hey, I can't do this anymore, but I've got a great writer for you instead, and put me in touch. And
great.
Ever since then.
And you're the main writer now for all intents and purposes.
Basically, yeah. There are some other writers, but my stuff kind of fills the bulk of the front page.
Do you usually have a set number of articles that you do for them, or?
Typically it's 2 every week, and then my op-ed, my column.
Right, and the front page, of course. Yeah.
Usually, yeah.
The municipal election 2018, hard to believe we're like 6 months or so from that already. Your comments and thoughts of what you learned from campaigning in Ward 4?
Well, I mean, it was a really great experience. I got to talk with a lot of people I wouldn't otherwise have been able to speak to. So, I mean, I think we came out of that election with a pretty progressive council, right, which, you know, it's not the ideal makeup that I would have preferred, but it's also, I can't really complain. It's a pretty good council. So, you know, I heard a lot of the issues like taxes, obviously, although that wasn't even the biggest one that I heard. Really, I think the biggest one was being ignored by councillors.
What issues?
No, like constituents were being ignored by the councillors, that they had reached out to them and not heard anything back. That was the number one thing that I heard at the doors that, in my experience since that election, I think that some of them have been working on. I've gotten responses a bit quicker. So, I mean, that's always a good thing, but that was definitely the number one complaint I heard.
I get responses a lot quicker too, but we're not counting that. I would have liked to see more women on council.
Yeah. I mean, I think it ended up pretty well. We have, three,
I believe, yeah.
So, I mean, that's about where we started out.
Yeah, we didn't lose ground on that.
Exactly. Yeah. It would be nice to have parity, but I mean, it is what it is.
Lots to talk about, Sara. Let's start with autism. Some movement, but again, due to the protesting and all of that, is it enough? Where would you like to see the provincial government go with this?
They need to implement all the changes that the parents are advocating for. And I mean, they've committed now to listening to the parents, which is a good step, but they should have done that before they made the changes.
Right.
So, I mean, it is nice that there's been some movement. I'm really happy that the parents have been having the success that they have, and it shows that the government is willing to move a bit when they get that much pushback. But absolutely, they need to walk back the changes, and it's too hard for the parents to start with, and then you put that added pressure on them of not having the proper supports, and it's just unbelievable.
Oh, totally. I was part of a couple of protests down in front of Ross Romano's office, and the painstaking look on these people's faces where they've literally had to leave their jobs because it's too stressful, and the government's not going to start consulting parents until next month.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. My nephew is actually autistic, and fortunately he's very, high functioning. He doesn't need a lot of supports, but enough that, seeing these cuts and stuff, I can only imagine how it might affect him going forward. And, fortunately, like I said, my sister hasn't had to leave her job yet or anything like that, but...
Are they now paying half of the cost? Lisa MacLeod, the minister, they're moving it to half of the cost, or where does the cost stand, what the government's going to cover for autism needs?
I don't know exact numbers. All I know is it's not enough. It was
close to half, but yeah.
Like, at least before the costs were covered for the needs, right? Even if they had to wait a little bit to get them, I think most parents would have preferred that system even over the current one, that it's just too hard.
23,000 kind of sticks in my mind, but...
that's not the way to clear the list.
No,
it's not clearing the list. It's making it so that there is no list because there's no services
They
to
set
get.
policy, and then you have to protest and scream, and then you get changes. It's like
Yeah.
they're really not listening to
Oh,
the
not at
people.
all. That's what's so frustrating about this government. They're saying they're a government for the people, but
Yeah.
what people? The people are not appreciating these changes. You see that in the protests from students, from to the healthcare changes. There's a big rally at Queen's Park on April 30th about healthcare. How many protests have the autism parents held? It's not for the people.
What are you hearing so far? We lived through this in the 90s with Mike Harris from 95 to 2000. Are you hearing that it's worse with Doug Ford now than Mike Harris years? Or
Actually, interesting tidbit about Mike Harris. He was the first politician I ever learned to hate.
Yeah,
I was still in like grade 3 or something, and he cut the music program in school, and I was so angry. He was the first politician I learned to hate.
Well, there you go. Maybe you wanted to be in the politics from there.
I guess. Where were we going with that? So the Ontario Health Coalition
Right.
actually said that the
Yeah.
Bill 74 is the worst health legislation that they've ever read. So it's worse than what the changes that were made during Mike Harris.
Yeah, that was my next question. I was there that night. You were there that night. Maybe let the viewers know how bad and Northern Ontario Health Coalition. What were they saying? Give the highlights of that.
Yeah. So basically, the government is planning to cut back from 141 hospital association or corporations down to I think 35. They're going to create this massive super agency, so they're going to amalgamate all of the 14 local health integration networks, or the LHINs, with Cancer Care Ontario, eHealth Ontario, and a few other organizations I can't remember the names of. So rather than having these individual groups they have their specialized services and do what they do well, they're going to amalgamate it into this massive super agency, supposedly to reduce bureaucracy, but everything will just get lost in the jumble. And right now Ontario has one of the best cancer care systems in the world,
Right.
and the best cancer survival rates in the world because of that system. And they're going to go mess it up with amalgamating Cancer Care Ontario with these other organizations. It's such a flawed system that it won't work. And it'll cost a lot of money to do for no real reason.
Right.
And one of the big flags in Bill 74 is that in, I think, 6 different places within the legislation, it allows for both for the super agency and the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care to make amalgamations and transfers and everything. They can do it at however, whatever they would like to do. And it also opens up the door to privatization. Right. So they are allowed to transfer, the responsibility for services to private for-profits or service providers.
Stay right there, Sarah. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with Sara McCleary on Civic Affairs. Back with Civic Affairs. I'm delighted we're talking with Sara McCleary, who's a household name in Sault Ste. Marie for sure. Sarah, you made some comments that I agree with that night we were there at the Northern Ontario Health Coalition. Where were the young people? And you wrote a column about that too. Tell me about that. What are your thoughts?
It was frustrating. I mean, it was I think the first thing I thought when I walked into the room, that I was the youngest person in the room.
You probably were.
I was, yeah. And it was just so frustrating to me. I'd been sharing it for days on Facebook, and I was talking to people about, hey, you should come out to this, and nobody came out. And I understand that, people don't really think about things like that until they need it, and then they'll go, oh, hey, I should have paid more attention. It's kind of, it's human nature to, if you don't use it, you don't think about it.
When you get to be my age, then you say, oh, well, I got to start thinking about it.
Yeah, it's just frustrating that, number one, that more younger people aren't involved in, the the political process and everything, and that they seem to think that, you know, they didn't need to worry about the healthcare system. But you're one, even if you don't have cancer or diabetes or what have you, you're one car accident away from needing that healthcare system. So I think it's something that everybody should be concerned about regardless of age. And I mean, I know we're getting more and more younger people involved in the political process, which is really, it's getting
Is that a hard
encouraging.
challenge to do these days?
I think it is, just because there's so much going on. People have so much going on in their own lives. It's a struggle to pay your bills. A lot of people are working 2 jobs, you know, or you've got a job and young kids. And, you know, I absolutely understand that it's really hard. It's exhausting. I'm out there every day. I work 2.5 jobs, and I've got 2 young kids, but I'm still out there doing it. It's not for everyone, 100%. I understand that, but at least staying informed, I think, is important. Even if you can't get involved, stay informed, go to these kinds of town halls.
Because these health cuts are going to hit people like a ton of bricks, and then they'll regret not being involved.
Exactly, and I mean, even if it's not them, their parents, right? It might affect their parents. So I think it's important to, like I said, at least be informed. If you don't have the time and the energy to get involved, at least stay informed.
Delisting the anesthetic for like colonoscopy, like that really hit home, kind of, because, you know, with my son had health issues, and he just laughed at that when he heard, like, are you kidding me? And it's terrible. Tomorrow's another big day. You're always doing something, Sarah, and I'll be there too with my, because I just like being around. And what's going on tomorrow at Tim Hortons?
So tomorrow is a Power of Many Day of Action. It's part of, the Sioux Action is part of an Ontario-wide day of action, coordinated primarily by the OFL, the Ontario Federation of Labour. So we'll be at the Tim Wendy's on Great Northern Road. We'll have information about the budget, how it's going to impact everyday lives, you know, what people can expect to see in the province going forward, and we'll just be distributing it, talking to people, making sure people are aware of what's going on, because, like I said, it's really important to stay informed, but I understand that, you know, not everybody wants to sit and read a 293 or 393, I think it is, page budget. So
almost like that document in the United States. It's a big document.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, and I understand not everybody wants to read through it. So the OFL has done all of the work. They've provided the, you know, summarized information. This is how it's going to impact everyday lives, and we'll be distributing it and talking to people and explaining things.
And you're not making this stuff up. You're explaining the facts when the budget didn't do much for Northern Ontario, and you're explaining why, what's been missing. And the third level care facility for the hospital is one that people are frustrated with the lack of action.
Yeah, Northern Ontario within the budget it's an afterthought. It's primarily focused on the GTA, and then kind of other areas get kind of tossed in here and there. Or, you know, the changes, for example, amalgamating the public health units is one change that I don't think it's a good idea anywhere in the province, but at least, you know, amalgamating Toronto and Scarborough, for example. Okay. The Sioux and Sudbury, that's not going to work, right? We're 3 hours apart.
You're going to run into problems.
Exactly. So I think that things like that, there needs to be a specific Northern Ontario focus.
Exactly, and you focus on subways, and it just frustrates people in Ontario. He's going to help build a subway line in Toronto, but again, you know, there is Toronto, Northern Ontario is a lot more than just north of Barrie kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, it's the $28 billion investment in Toronto in the transit, and then nothing specific to Northern Ontario, nothing specific to the Sioux.
When you get out there to things like Tim Hortons tomorrow, what kind of reaction do you usually get from people doing an event like that?
A lot of people kind of go, oh, okay, thanks. You know, a lot of people don't really think that it's going to impact them. You know, they're too busy with their jobs and what have you. We do get a lot of people that are kind of go, oh, wow, really? I didn't know that, you know. So there are some people that you are opening up their eyes, but it isn't a disappointing amount that kind of they don't seem to think that it's going to impact them, even with us explaining it. But the goal is, maybe we'll at least get them thinking, right? Even if they don't right away believe us, maybe
Right.
you planted the little seed, and they'll think about it and then look into it. And
It's a 4-year thing because we can't make changes provincially until 2022. But
Exactly.
if you start now, you educate people and they'll appreciate it.
Exactly. I mean, the government has proven that they will move a little bit, like with the autism stuff.
Right.
They've proven with enough pressure they'll move a little bit. But I don't think we're going to
And
get
Ross called
major
Tara
gains.
after the last thing. So stay right there. We'll take another quick break and we'll be back with Sara McCleary right after these messages. Thanks for staying with us at a great thrill of some dynamic ladies in the month of April, and Sara McCleary certainly fits that bill. Sara, before the show we were talking about the federal scene. We're coming to a close of this current term with the Prime Minister. Your thoughts on how it's happened since 2015? Your idea was exactly what I was thinking too. It was a smooth start, but the weather is getting pretty cloudy these days.
Sunny days, I thought.
And a feminist to boot, and look what's happened.
Supposedly, yeah. No, Trudeau has done no favors for himself. I mean, he's had a lot of bumps that somehow he managed to get through, but this last SNC Lavalin and
Right. With the two cabinet ministers.
Yeah, Philpott and Wilson Raybould.
Skinner, yeah.
That hit him really hard. And I think there are quite a few other criticisms that we could make of him.
Right.
That, like I said, somehow he managed to coast through a lot of them, but I think they're finally catching up to him now, and he's got a tough fight on his hands this October.
Well, you and I both know politically motivated. You and I know politics. When you have issues like this, they're sticking. It means trouble for the government. How do you think the local scene will play out? Do you think Terry Sheehan should be losing sleep at night in the federal side?
I think he's got his work cut out for him, for sure. Trudeau is not going to do him any favors. I know for a while there they were using the slogan Team Trudeau. I don't think they're going to be doing that anymore.
No.
So, I mean, Terry has brought some money into the Sioux, so he does have that going for him. But he's also been a member of the sitting government, so that really helps. I think that this coming election is kind of anybody's game.
Well, we saw in 2014 when Brian Hayes thought he would get a second term, but when it's a referendum on your leader, it can tank you awfully quickly.
Exactly, and I do think that that's going to be kind of a lot of what this upcoming election is about, is the leaders.
Yeah.
It seems to be that it's going to be a kind of a popularity contest.
That's
between
right,
the
yeah.
leaders.
And our current mayor ran in 2011, and his leader wasn't, Michael Ignatieff couldn't get it done, so he just couldn't get elected. Sometimes you're at the mercy of your national leader. Maybe talk to us a little bit about St. Vincent's Place and how things are going, a quick update on how things are going there since the coldest night of the year.
Yeah, so coldest night was amazing. We brought in, I think it was $88,000, which exceeded our goal by $38,000. I've been working on a new fundraiser that is coming up in June. It's called the Fight Hunger Games. We were going to have a canned food drive in the Station Mall from June 2nd to June 8th, and then June 9th we're going to have a family games day at Clerk Park. So families can come out and do kind of beanbag toss, that kind of thing. All in support of St. Vincent's.
For our viewers, where did most of the money that Coldest Night brought in, what do you need to use it for? Food mostly, or?
Yeah, so our shelter is funded by the government, so fundraising doesn't usually go to that. I mean, we do have to kind of buy some, hygiene items for the guys, stuff like that sometimes. But for the most part, it goes towards the food bank, filling the shelves when we run low on donations, which definitely happens in
How
the summer.
many people in the city are using St. Vincent's Place right now, would you say roughly?
So our soup kitchen averages about 800 meals a month.
Wow,
And
that's
our-
significant.
Yeah, and the food bank averages about 170 families a month.
Great, and you don't see that dropping. Things are getting tougher and tougher.
Exactly. Yeah.
We talked about this. A lot of people think that politics has become a popularity contest. How do you feel about that?
I think 100%. It's become so much about personalities and who has the best social media feed, who's the best at selfies, and it doesn't focus enough on who's actually going to fight for the city or what have you, the province, country, which is, I think, more how it should be focused. That's exactly how Trudeau won. It was a popularity contest.
Exactly, and we can see that how that popularity contest can nosedive on you as well.
Exactly.
If you don't have the talent to do the job. Obviously, our current Prime Minister, his father was a little bit better than he's been performing. What do you think about people voting for the party or the person? I think that's a reality in Sault Ste. Marie's. Your thoughts?
So I think that voting for a party can be helpful. I think party politics is definitely, there are advantages to it. It's a good way to kind of get a quick idea of what the person stands for.
Right.
But I think overall, a person should vote for the person. You should make sure you identify with that person, that you believe in what they stand for and how they'll work for you. I think that's more important than the party.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen that not all elected officials get back to you at the same with the same tempo. Where do you see Sault Ste. Marie in 10 years at this current rate? If you were in any level of government as a sitting member, where do you see Sault Ste. Marie right now?
I think. So it's hard to say. So at the municipal level, I think, like I said, we've got a fairly progressive council that I think wants to make changes and move in the right direction. But I think that with the way the funding situation is going at the provincial level, it's making it hard. So we know that they just lost a fair amount of the funding that the province provides.
For future Sault Ste. Marie.
Yeah, $1.4 million there, and then the gas tax portion that goes to the municipality, that's dropped. So, the city doesn't really know where its future stands. So if the province kind of brings the funding back up and is willing to support the municipality a little bit stronger, then I think that the city's kind of aimed in the right direction. If that doesn't happen, then
we're not getting our bang for our buck with this government provincially, and the city, you can see it with the mayor and councillors are frustrated. But that's great. Just a quick answer to if you would have a level of politics you could choose to serve in and why, municipal, provincial, or federal. I've got about 30 seconds left.
Honestly, I think I'd be happy to serve at any level as long as it's for the Sioux. If I were to move to, Sudbury or Kingston, I don't think I'd be interested in serving in politics. But as long as it's for the Sioux, I'd be happy at any level.
I take you have no desire to move to Toronto or Southern Ontario?
Not right now.
The Sioux is the Sioux. It's a great place to live. And thank you so much, Sara. Your commitment to Sault Ste. Marie is wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
That's another edition of Civic Affairs. I'm Andy Martins. We'll see you next time right here.